Oh, this is gold. This is gold right here. All the Tank haters, eat your heart out. So days after information broke that there could be a rehydration clause between none other than Gervonta Davis and Frank Martin, the haters went on a tirade trying to shame Tank, accuse Tank of being afraid, all these types of things, only to find out less than 24 hours that is not the case. I did a video about it. Stay tuned to the end of this video. I will explain everything. And you guys should understand by the end of this video. So boxing reporter Dan Rayfield says, I've been asked this a lot the past couple of days. Here is the answer. No. There is no rehydration clause for Gervonta Davis versus Frank Martin. You guys can see it on the screen. It says, I've been getting this question a lot, and the answer is no. No. In the words of Destiny's Child, no, 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 no. Can I get a rehydrate? No, no. No, there is no rehydration clause for Tank's upcoming fight. Says, however, the WBA is planning to follow the IBF by requiring fight morning weight check. But this fight was already done, and as a result, it will not be a part of that. But it is possible for future WBA belts and bouts. So basically, what does this mean? In layman's terms, this is just a regular lightweight fight for the WBA title with Gervonta Davis and Frank Martin. Now, I made a video about it. The video, I'll put a card at the end of this video so you guys can check it out. I'll give my thoughts. I don't have a problem with them doing this in the future. As it was coming out, the information was coming out, DAZN reporter says this: WBA president Gilberto Mendoza confirms that there will be a WBA mandated rehydration clause in the Tank Davis versus Frank Martin fight. So this was the initial report, and people just took it and ran with it. It says, in a text message to Sports Illustrated, the president Mendoza says there will be a 12-pound rehydration limit that was, quote, based on recent events. Mendoza did not respond when asked if this WBA policy was for all sanctioned fights. So this was like I guess the early readings on this whole situation. After that, another boxing reporter comes out and says he kept getting asked the same question, probably based on reporter A's tweet that I just showed you from Sports Illustrated. Keep in mind, that reporter works with DAZN, and we had a follow-up from Dan Rayfield, and obviously he reached out and they said that this is not going to be the case because the fight with Tank was already a scheduled bout, and this is something they're doing moving forward. So it's no different than a new policy at your job. Sometimes when there's new policies, they have to give people, or they choose to give people, a little bit of notice before it's fully implemented. And the fans are like mad because they were wrong, and they wanted this to be the case because they felt it made Gervonta Davis look bad. Like, oh, you guys are both lightweights. Why are you taking this fight and making him do a rehydration clause, yada, yada, yada. And a fan says, WBA president already said there is one. Dan Rayfield says he made an error. It wasn't done. So people are trying to now, I love my job. People are now trying to force this to be the case based on the earlier reportings, because let me just break it to you and we'll get straight to it and cut the fat. The Tank Davis, Gervonta Davis haters, they like this. They like this because they felt that it lessened somehow the fight between Gervonta Davis and Frank Martin. So when they heard this initial report that there was possibly a 12-pound rehydration clause, they were going to use that to shame and use that against Gervonta Davis, as if he's scared of Frank Martin and he needs to cheat by manipulating the weight and weight stipulations. Keep in mind, there was a rehydration clause in the Ryan Garcia fight. Now, another thing, why this is bogus and totally bunk, because Canelo Alvarez, a lot of the same people that hate Tank Davis like Canelo Alvarez, and he's done things with weight. He made up a whole weight class and had 155 Canelo weight as the weight class. No one batted an eyelash. No one cared. Nobody condemned Canelo and said he was afraid or scared. They just accepted it because it was Canelo Alvarez. But then when you have a black fighter who's at the top of the game, face of boxing, people are using like weight to act like he's scared and, you know, things like that. And then for this, come to find out, it's not even true. It was preliminarily put out there, prematurely put out there, and now it's being corrected, right? And somebody said, so you know more than the WBA. Again, like, why are the fans having such a hard time accepting this? A fan says, so you know more than the WBA, and they tag Dan Rayfield. There are actually people who are angry because they want, again, I'm telling you exactly what's happening. They wanted this to be the case so they can condemn Gervonta Davis and call him names. And then Dan Rayfield, in case you don't trust his reporting, he says, no, Gilberto, and then he tagged him, right? So that's the WBA president, thought it was done, but it was not, and the fight had already been signed. So this is case in point that these are purely Gervonta Davis haters, you know, the Salty Susies, racist fans, whatever you want to label, old media, the shapeshifters. And now because the glove doesn't fit and they can't use it against Tank Davis to trash talk him, they're mad. They're trying to like make this be a thing because Dan Rayfield is doing his job and reporting that it's not a thing, which is, I find it hilarious. Like, it's that serious, right? It's that serious. And again, someone says the own WBA president don't know what the heck is going on. Why is this such a hard thing to understand? Once again, you had a DAZN reporter put out the information that he obtained, that he got from apparently the WBA president. This was May 16th at 2:35. It resulted in another reporter, Dan Rayfield, doing his research later in the day. And it's not even that shocking because Frank Martin, I never really seen him comment on it. Or actually, Frank Martin did comment on it during the spaces, and he says he doesn't know because he wasn't aware of it, so he wasn't sure. But he said there may be, right? Gervonta Davis, if you look at his Twitter, he was posting that he heard on X, on Twitter, that this would be the case. He said, I don't know what the WBA, and people were leaving him hate mail and hate comments like, oh, why do you need a rehydration clause? Oh, you guys are in the same weight class. This is weak. This is bunk, blah, blah, blah. And Tank's like, I don't have influence or power over the whole WBA, or I don't even know if it's true. This is the first that I'm hearing of, and the information's available online. So I don't understand why people are having such a difficult time wrapping their heads around this. Information came out. It's a new policy. There was some confusion. And then Dan Rayfield, who got the information and got to it after, did his research, reached out to his connects apparently, and then they came to confirm that it was not a policy that was going to affect existing fights. Like Ray Ford has a fight on that Saudi card with Wilder versus Zhang. That fight is not going to be included because this is a new policy. What can't you guys understand? Hopefully I'm speaking clearly so you guys can follow what Boxing Ego is saying. A new policy, a new plan, meaning the WBA just introduced this. So they're giving some sort of grace period. All fights that have already been situated, already been announced, this rule need not apply because under their contract, under their terms, they had no knowledge of it. So they feel the best thing is to slowly roll it out. That's what a lot of companies do. Like I've worked different jobs, and if you have a new policy, like even let's say something like Netflix, if you're paying, let's say $13.99 a month for Netflix, and they decide based on Netflix films and the cost and, you know, inflation, whatever, that the price is going to go up to $16.99. Usually what happens is they don't just introduce a $3 price hike. It'll be like, hey, we will be increasing the prices on September 1st. So they'll give you a little bit of grace period before, like inevitably it will be the case in the future, but they're not gonna typically rush it to the point where they don't give you like 30 days notice or whatever the case is. This is literally what's going on, but people have such a difficult time comprehending this. So anyone who's having a difficult time comprehending this, Boxing Ego is telling you why they are having such a challenge in comprehending this, because they want it to be true. They used it, they jumped the gun. There's even content creators that jumped the gun. They use this because they do not like Gervonta Davis. A lot of Haniacs and a lot of the Haniac platforms that do anything for Dev, they use this and they seen like, yo, Tank's putting a rehydration clause on him. And that was always a dumb argument because this has nothing to do with Tank. This is literally the WBA and their organization, what they're planning on doing going forward. That's why the same people oftentimes in the comment section that jumped the gun, rushed it, you know, content creators that rushed to put out the information to make Tank look bad, in the end, that's why they look bad. That's why Boxing Ego is the best in the business. I put out one video regarding this subject matter and I didn't jump the gun. I was just reporting what was being said at the time. And I told you in that video, there will be a card at the end of this video. So I had no knowledge that if this was true or false at that time I made the video, but I told you, I like it. I like the rehydration clause. In that video, giving you guys the cliff notes, the reason I like it is because people are gaming the system. Period. People are using this whole weight thing. They got better sports medicine, better supplements, better knowledge of how to cut weight and stuff like that. And people are using this to their advantage to the point where they're walking around at these crazy weights, fighting in these little divisions and, you know, basically trying to give themselves an advantage. Tank is the A side. So even if he put a rehydration clause on somebody, deal with it. He's the A side rules, period. So I said, wait, so the Tank haters spend a whole day complaining about the rehydration clause, saying that Gervonta is cheating and looking for advantages on Frank Martin, only to have the WBA say there won't be a mandatory rehydration clause for Davis Garcia fight, but I meant to put Davis Martin fight. And I find that very hilarious that people jump the gun. They try to find any way to lessen the impact or lessen the fight to make it look bad. And then the information was bad and now they look bad. I don't look bad because, again, watch my initial video. I like the rehydration clause element because you got guys who are doing too much in terms of their weight and they're jockeying for position and things like that. So I actually like the rehydration clause. I wouldn't even be mad if boxing went to the same day weigh-in, where you had to weigh in the same day of the fight. So fights on Saturday, weigh in Saturday morning, everybody, you know, rehydrate as much as you can after that point, you know, and have certain thresholds, and then, you know, just have the fight, because people are doing too much. And the other thing is, even if Tank were to initiate rehydration clauses as the A side, it makes sense in certain scenarios, especially when people are kind of trying to game the system. And how could you be mad at Tank Davis, like, when you know he's not beating guys based on his weight at all? Because almost every opponent minus Eastside Pitbull Cruz has been taller, bigger. You know, a lot of these guys can box, or they're strong. Different styles. He's fighting all kinds of different styles. Tank is definitely not a weight bully. So either way, he probably wouldn't care, because he's not part of the problem. He's not part of the problem at all. So it doesn't really matter if they do this or don't do this. He was weighing 138.4 weeks before, maybe even a month before the fight was even announced. So like I said in my last video, the people that get the angriest with this are usually the people that are probably abusive to the policy or to the weight issue, which is probably why the WBA is going the way of the IBF to initiate a policy like this. Because the sanctioning bodies, they're not game goofy. They see what these fighters are doing. So as a result, they have to put a stop to it. Like, it's just, it comes with the territory. At the end of the day, if so many people are like, if you had a company and you had a retail company and you're the CEO of it or whatnot, and you put out some kind of coupon, and then you also had a 10%, and there was no limitations in the literature, in the small print, the fine print, and people were double dipping, combining all these coupons because you didn't say in the fine print may only use one coupon at a time, or only one discount, you know, can be applied. And then you were selling lawnmowers and you were undercutting yourself. You were losing money because people were combining all these promotions because you didn't spell it out. Then what do you think is going to happen when they get the financials, when they get the report saying like, man, we selling these John Deere lawnmowers and we're not making no profit, and we're losing a ton of money by customers who are gaming the system using 1,000 different coupons because we have no restrictions outlined, right? Then guess what? They're gonna come out with something. It's that simple. Same thing with this rehydration issue. People don't want to chill and, you know, fight in their natural weight class. So policies like this got to come out. But it's not hard to understand. It has been ordered by the WBA, or it said it's ordered, but the WBA champ committee hadn't notified Martin, and the fight was already signed, so it won't be used. There's not a controversy. Wasn't like Tank was asking for one. He wasn't, per those involved. So once again, the haters look extremely stupid yet again. The Tank haters said, oh, I smell Tank. This is Tank doing. This is his doing. Tank Davis is the one that initiated this, only to find out that it's actually not even part of it yet. And it's a future policy that won't be in effect next month when this happens. And the WBA is confirming that Tank wasn't asking for this, nor was he involved in their decision making. So this is why I tell you, it pays to tell the truth. It pays to not be a hater. And Tank Davis continues to win. People trying anything that they can in order to make him look bad, in an effort to bring down his brand, bring down him being the face of boxing and the fight card. And he has a great fight with David Benavidez on the card. They're finding any way to try to reduce that or make the fight look bad, make it look like the fight is not going to be fair, or tell the fans a way to not give credit if Tank wins. This is all fear. This is hate and fear. Only hate and fear makes people act in such a way. Me, go watch my last video. I don't have a problem with this moving forward, even if it was a part of this, because I understand why the policy would come about. There's a lot of people, like I'm looking at Devin Haney and Shakur and Ryan Garcia. They're looking huge in some of their off-season photos, but then they're crunching down to the 135s and 140s. So at some point, it has to be tamed. This is the way you do it. So fighters can now fight where they, if you're a 140 pounder and you really should be a 154 pounder, then that's where you should be fighting. Mayweather, Pacquiao, guys of yesteryear, they weren't doing all this to win. You know what I mean? Like where they were just losing 30 pounds in 6 days and all this crazy stuff. Tank's not doing that to win. He's winning off pure skill, ring IQ, power, ability, and that kind of thing. So I'm not mad at this going forth. I never was mad at it, but now the haters look dumb because they were blaming Tank for it, only to find out that's not even the case and it doesn't even apply yet for the Tank fight. So this is why you don't jump the gun in this business, because you as fans need to hold people accountable in 2024. If people are feeding you BS and hate only to be wrong, you should be in their comment sections blowing it up. You should be on their platforms in the comments blowing it up. Like, hey, you told me some bad information. I don't think I could trust you. You have no credibility. Boxing Ego will always have credibility because I operate with integrity. There's no agenda. I report what's going on. I give my opinions and we keep it pushing. But I can't say the same for everybody. There's a lot of people who are moving, you know, with hidden agendas in mind. And when you do that, and when you're not pure, you're not moving in the right way, it only makes you look bad in the end because you make mistakes. Boxing Ego don't make mistakes.